Aggressive, the letter said. I stared at the piece of heavy, cream-colored cardstock vibrating in my hand, trying to process the word. I looked up at my house, then back at the letter, then up at the house again. It was peach. It wasn't neon salmon. It wasn't radioactive coral. It wasn't the surface of the sun at noon. It was a soft, pastel, exceedingly harmless shade of peach. The paint can had literally been labeled Summer Whisper. It was the kind of color you'd expect to find on a grandmother's bathroom hand towel or the icing of a cupcake at a gender reveal party where everyone is secretly disappointed it's another boy. It was a color that apologized for existing. But according to the executive board of the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association, and specifically its president, Linda Halloway, my house was currently committing an act of visual terrorism against the neighborhood. Visual aggression, I read aloud, my voice cracking slightly in the empty driveway. The specific hue creates a chaotic energy that disrupts the harmonious beige aesthetic of the community and incites unrest. Incites unrest? It's a layer of Benjamin Moore exterior satin. Linda, not a manifesto. I stood there in my robe and slippers, the morning sun hitting the fresh coat of paint I had spent $3,000 commissioning just last week. I had actually felt proud of it. For 5 years, I had lived in a house that was the color of wet cardboard, identical to the house on my left, the color of dry cardboard, and the house on my right, the color of slightly damp cardboard. I wanted a change. I wanted to come home to something that didn't look like a depressing bureaucratic filing cabinet. I walked to the edge of the lawn where the violation had been taped to my mailbox with an excessive amount of blue painter's tape. Ironic, considering they clearly hated paint. A shadow fell over me. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The scent of lavender laundry detergent and judgment was unmistakable. "Good morning, Mark," a voice said. It was smooth, saccharine, and about as warm as liquid nitrogen. I turned slowly. Linda Halloway was standing on the sidewalk. She was wearing her uniform, a floral blouse that looked like it had been upholstered onto her body, white capri pants that defied physics, and a visor. Always the visor. She held a clipboard against her chest like a shield. "Linda," I said, holding up the letter. "What is this?" "It's a notification of non-compliance," she said, smiling. It was the smile of a shark that had just read a self-help book. "We discussed this at the board meeting last night. We tried to call you, but you didn't pick up." "I was sleeping, Linda. It was Tuesday." "Well, democracy doesn't sleep, Mark. Neither does the integrity of our property values." She took a step closer, her eyes scanning the facade of my home with genuine disgust. "You know, I really thought you knew better. We have standards here. Whispering Pines standards." "I got approval," I said, fighting the urge to crumble the heavy cardstock into a ball and eat it just to end the conversation. I submitted the request forms 3 months ago. Exterior color change, peach, pastel family. It was approved, signed by you. Linda sighed, a long dramatic exhalation that suggested dealing with me was a burden akin to carrying the ring to Mordor. She tapped a manicured fingernail on her clipboard. "Mark, Mark, Mark, you applied for peach. We approved peach. This," she waved a hand vaguely at my house, "this is salmon." I blinked. "It's Summer Whisper." "It has pink undertones," she whispered, leaning in as if sharing a scandalous secret. "Peach has yellow undertones. This has pink. Pink is an aggressive part of the spectrum. It excites the retina. It raises blood pressure. Did you know Mrs. Higgins 3 doors down had a migraine this morning? She looked out her window, saw this fruit salad, and had to lie down. Mrs. Higgins is 94, Linda. She gets migraines from the Weather Channel. It's the aggression, Mark. The house is screaming at us. She pulled a massive ring of color swatches from her purse. It looked like something a jailer would carry, but instead of keys to cells, it held the keys to my misery. She fanned them out with practiced dexterity, hunting through the endless sea of browns and tans until she found a specific beige chip. She held it up against my siding. "See?" she said triumphantly. "This is sand dune. This is what we allow. Your house is at least 3 deviations away from sand dune on the saturation scale. It's practically neon." "It is not neon. It's barely visible against the clouds." "It clashes with the azaleas," she snapped, dropping the sweet facade. "And it violates Section 4, Paragraph C, Subsection 2. No structure shall utilize exterior coloring that distracts from the uniformity of the streetscape or causes visual distress to neighbors." "You are causing distress, Mark. You are a source of distress." I looked at the letter again. $500? Per day, Linda confirmed. Retroactive to when the painting started. "So you currently owe us, let's see, the crew started Monday, $2,000, and another $500 tomorrow. Unless, of course, you repaint it." "Repaint it?" I choked out. "I just paid $3,000 to have it painted. I can't just paint it again." "Well," Linda said, turning on her heel, "perhaps you should have thought about that before you decided to turn our lovely neighborhood into a circus tent. You have 24 hours to schedule a remediation crew, or we proceed with the lien process. Have a blessed day, Mark." She walked away, the click-clack of her sensible heels on the pavement sounding like a countdown clock. I stood there for a long time. I looked at my house. It looked nice. It looked happy. It looked like a house where someone might actually enjoy living. And now, apparently, it was illegal. I went inside and made coffee, my hands shaking. This wasn't just about paint. This was about control. It was about the fact that I had bought a house, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath slice of the American dream, and I was being told I was renting the exterior from a woman who probably organized her spice rack alphabetically by color. I sat at my kitchen island, the letter spread out before me. I read the bylaws. I pulled up the HOA handbook on my laptop, a 400-page PDF that took 3 minutes to load. I searched for aggressive. Nothing. I searched for color. There it was. Section 4, Exterior Aesthetics. 4.1, Permitted Colors, Earth Tones, Neutrals and muted shades consistent with the natural landscape of the region. 4.2, Prohibited Colors, Brights, neons, highly saturated primaries, and any hue deemed visually aggressive by the board. Deemed, I muttered. That was the magic word. It was subjective. It was a trap. I decided to fight. I wasn't going to let Linda bully me. I was an engineer. I dealt with facts, with tolerances, with measurable data. Aggressive was not a metric. You couldn't measure aggression in lumens or wavelengths. I spent the rest of the day building my defense. I printed out color spectrum charts. I took photos of the house at different times of day to prove the saturation was low. I even found a study from a university in Sweden about the calming effects of pastel orange on the human psyche. I was ready. The next evening, I walked into the community center for the monthly HOA meeting. It smelled of floor wax and stale donuts. The board sat at a long folding table on a raised platform, looking down at the 5 residents who had bothered to show up. Linda sat in the center, the gavel resting in front of her like a weapon of war. "Next item," Linda announced, not even looking at the agenda. "The matter of the Disturbance at 404 Oak Lane. I stood up. I'm here to appeal the violation. Linda peered over her reading glasses. Mark, we didn't expect you. We assumed you were busy painting. I'm not repainting, I said, walking to the front. I have evidence that my color choice is compliant. Summer Whisper has a light reflectance value of 68. The cutoff for brights is usually considered 75. It is technically a neutral. I slammed my folder onto the table. It slid and hit the treasurer's water bottle. Mr. Henderson, the treasurer said. His name was Bob, and he looked like a thumb wearing a polo shirt. We don't need science. We have eyes. Your eyes are subjective, Bob. The bylaws state earth tones. Peach is a fruit. Fruit comes from the earth. Therefore, it is an earth tone. That is a logical fallacy, the secretary, a woman named Karen, literally her name was Karen, chimed in. By that logic, a fire truck is an earth tone because iron ore comes from the earth. A fire truck is red, I argued. My house is barely colored. It's white with a spray tan. It's aggressive, Linda interrupted, banging the gavel. Mark, look, we aren't going to debate color theory with you. The board has voted. The color is salmon. Salmon is a fish. Fish belong in the ocean, not on Oak Lane. You are in violation. The fines stand. Actually, she checked her watch. It's after 6 p.m. That's another day. You now owe $2,500. You can't be serious. We are deadly serious about community standards, Linda said, her eyes cold. If you don't like the rules, you are welcome to move. But as long as you live here, you will be beige. You will be gray. You will be taupe. You will blend in, Mark. You will not stick out. We do not tolerate individuals who think they are special. The room went silent. The other residents looked at their shoes. They were terrified. They knew if they spoke up, Linda would measure their grass height with a ruler the next day. I looked at them. I looked at Linda, smug and secure in her little fiefdom of power. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It wasn't a scream. It was the quiet, mechanical click of a safety being disengaged. So, I said, my voice dangerously calm. To clarify, the problem is that the color is aggressive? Yes, Linda said. And that it doesn't follow a spiritual or natural pattern? We didn't say anything about spiritual patterns, Bob muttered. Actually, I said, recalling a specific clause I had read at 3 a.m. Section 12, subsection D regarding religious exemptions. No bylaw regarding exterior decoration or color shall infringe upon the sincerely held beliefs or sacred structures of a federally recognized religious entity, nor shall it prohibit the display of spiritual symbols essential to worship. Linda narrowed her eyes. Are you claiming the peach paint is Jesus, Mark? No, I said. I'm just clarifying the rules. So if I were to, say, find a design that had significant spiritual symbology, you couldn't block it? We follow federal law, Linda said dismissively. But unless you're planning to build a cathedral in your driveway, sit down and write the check. I don't need a cathedral, I said, picking up my folder. I just need clarity. You want me to change the color because this one is too stimulating. You want something that reflects, what did you say? The natural order? Yes. And you want me to deal with the aggression? Yes. Eliminate the aggression, Mark. That's all we ask. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who had just realized he could buy a decommissioned tank on the internet if he really wanted to. Okay, Linda, I said. I'll paint the house. I'll get rid of the peach. You won't see a speck of summer whisper by next week. Excellent, Linda beamed. I knew you'd see reason. Sand Dune is on sale at Home Depot. Oh, I won't be using Sand Dune, I said, turning to leave. I think I need something that speaks to a deeper truth, something that really contrasts with the aggression of the world. I walked out of the community center into the cool night air. My heart was pounding. I got into my car and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. They wanted to play by the book? Fine. I would throw the book at them, but I wasn't just going to throw it. I was going to wrap it in C4 and detonate it. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number of the only contractor I knew who was crazy enough to listen to me. Tony, I said when he picked up. Mark, it's 8 p.m. Did your water heater explode? No, I said, staring at the lit windows of the community center where Linda was probably celebrating her victory with a stale bear claw. But I have a project, a big one. Yeah? What is it, deck? Kitchen remodel? Exterior paint, I said. Easy. What color? All of them, I said. Well, 2 of them, specifically Vantablack and Titanium White. Mark, what are you talking about? Tony, how good are you at painting straight lines? Like really, really straight lines. And how do you feel about zebras? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Tony chuckled. It was a low, gravelly sound. Did Linda piss you off? She fined me for peach, Tony. She said it was aggressive. And you want to paint zebras? Not just zebras, Tony. Dazzle camouflage. World War I naval camouflage. The kind used to confuse enemy targeting systems. If she thinks peach is aggressive, wait until she sees a geometric optical illusion that makes it impossible to tell how far away the house is. I charge double for spite jobs, Tony said. I'll pay triple, I replied. And Tony? Yeah? Bring the industrial sprayers. I hung up the phone. I started the car. The peach house was dead. Long live the shrine. The next 3 days were a blur of caffeine, legal paperwork, and feverish sketching. I didn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I was fueled by the pure, high-octane spite that only a suburban homeowner can generate. First, the research. I went deep. I didn't just need a paint job, I needed a shield. A legal spiritual shield. I spent 48 hours on the IRS website and various online ordainment portals. It turns out starting a religion is surprisingly easy. The United States government, in its infinite wisdom, generally doesn't like to tell people what they can and cannot worship. I filled out the forms. Name of organization: the Order of the Refractive Stripe. Mission statement: to seek clarity through confusion, to understand that the world is black and white, and everything else is a distraction. To worship the sacred geometry of the zebra, nature's most perfect defense against the predators of the banal. I paid the expedited filing fee. I ordained myself as High Refractor Mark. I printed the certificate on parchment paper and framed it. Then the design. I sat at my drafting table with a photo of my house and a ruler. Dazzle camouflage isn't just stripes. It's intersecting geometric shapes designed to break up a silhouette. It's jagged lines, bold curves, and high contrast angles. It is designed to induce nausea in submarine commanders. I sketched thick, jagged black bolts cutting across the white siding. I drew stripes that wrapped around corners, defying perspective. I designed a pattern that, if you looked at it too long, made you feel like you were falling down a flight of stairs. It was hideous. It was beautiful. It was perfect. Tony pulled up on Thursday morning. He wasn't driving his usual pickup. He was driving a flatbed truck loaded with scaffolding, buckets of specialized marine-grade paint, and a crew of 3 guys who looked like they had done time for crimes involving spray paint. "Holy Mother of God," Tony said, looking at the sketch I handed him. He was a big guy, covered in drywall dust and tattoos. He squinted at the paper. "Mark, this is gonna induce seizures." "Is it doable?" I asked. "Doable? Yeah. We just tape it off and spray, but the neighbors are gonna riot." "That's the point, Tony. That is entirely the point." "What about the HOA? Linda is gonna be on us like flies on, well, you know." "Let me handle Linda," I said, tapping the breast pocket of my shirt where my ordination papers and the building permit resided. "You just paint. If anyone asks, you are restoring a religious artifact." Tony grinned. He spit on the ground and clapped his hands. "All right, boys, unload the scaffolding. We're going to church." The activity attracted attention immediately. In Whispering Pines, a contractor truck is like a signal flare. Curtains twitched. Walkers slowed down. I saw Mrs. Higgins peek out, looking concerned. By 10 a.m. the scaffolding was up. By 11 a.m. the base coat of blinding titanium white was being sprayed. It was so bright it hurt to look at in the direct sun. At 11:15 a.m. the inevitable happened. I was standing on the lawn, holding a blueprint, when I heard the screech of brakes. A golf cart, the official vehicle of the HOA patrol, skidded to a halt at the curb. Linda didn't wait for it to stop completely before she hopped out. She was wearing a different floral blouse today, this one with aggressive hibiscuses. "Mark!" she shrieked. "Mark Henderson! What is going on here?" "Remediation, Linda," I called back, smiling broadly. "Just like you asked. I'm removing the peach." She marched up the driveway, dodging a worker carrying a bucket of black epoxy. "I see that. But why is it white? It's very white. Is that sand dune?" "No, Linda. Sand dune implies dirt. This is cleansing light. It's the canvas." "The canvas?" She stopped, her nose twitching. She looked at the buckets. She saw the label on the black paint. Vantablack 2.0. Light-absorbing matte. "Mark, why do you have black paint? Houses in Whispering Pines cannot be black. That is definitely not an earth tone." "Oh, it's not for the whole house," I assured her. "Just the accents, to create contrast." "Contrast is not permitted," she yelled, her voice rising an octave. "Uniformity, Mark. We discussed uniformity." "Hey," Tony yelled from the roof. "Lady, you're in a hard hat area. You got a helmet?" Linda glared up at him. "I am the president of the association. I don't need a helmet to stand on this driveway." "Actually, OSHA says you do," Tony deadpanned. "And my insurance says if a ladder falls on your hibiscus blouse, I'm liable. So scoot." Linda turned back to me, her face turning a shade of red that was ironically close to the salmon she hated so much. "Stop this immediately. I am issuing a work order." "You can't," I said. "I can and I will. You are altering the exterior without approval." "I have a permit," I said, pulling the paper from my pocket. She snatched it. "Exterior refinishing and iconography restoration? What does that mean?" "It means," I said, leaning in, "that I am preparing the vessel." "The vessel? Mark, are you on drugs?" "No, Linda. I have found religion. And my religion requires stripes." As if on cue, the first sprayer hissed. A thick, jagged line of Vantablack was blasted onto the pristine white siding. It was shocking. It looked like a tear in the fabric of reality. Linda screamed. It was a short, sharp sound, like a stepped-on squeaky toy. No, no, you can't do that. It looks like a prison. It looks like a zebra. It is the zebra, I corrected her. The zebra is the guide. I'm calling the police, she yelled, fumbling for her phone. This is vandalism. You are vandalizing your own house. Go ahead, I said, crossing my arms. Call them. Tell them I'm painting my house. See what they say. She dialed 911. I actually watched her dial 911 for a paint job. Yes, I have an emergency, she shouted into the phone. There is a maniac destroying property at 404 Oak Lane. He is painting stripes. Yes, stripes. It's obscene. It's visually assaulting me. Send an officer immediately. She hung up and pointed a shaking finger at me. You are done, Mark. You are so done. When the police get here, they are going to arrest you and impound this circus truck. Tony, I yelled up to the roof. Linda says you're doing a great job. Make the next stripe thicker. You got it, boss, Tony yelled back. The sprayer hissed again. A massive diagonal black slash cut across the front bay window. It was glorious. It was the ugliest thing I had ever seen, and I loved every inch of it. Linda stood at the end of the driveway, vibrating with rage, guarding the entrance like a troll at a bridge. I went to my cooler, grabbed a cold soda, and sat on the porch steps. Want a Coke, Linda? I offered. It's a long wait for the cops. She didn't answer. She just stared at the stripes, her lips moving silently, likely reciting the bylaws like a protective mantra 20. Minutes later, a cruiser rolled up. It wasn't lights and sirens, just a slow, tired roll. Officer Miller. I knew him. He had come to my house once when my car alarm malfunctioned. He was a good guy who looked like he wanted to retire 10 years ago. He stepped out of the car, adjusted his belt, and looked at the house. He stopped. He tilted his head to the left, then to the right. He took off his sunglasses, rubbed his eyes, and put them back on. He walked up the driveway. Problem, officer? I asked. Well, Miller said, looking from me to the house to Linda. I got a call about a visual assault and public indecency involving architecture. I assumed it was a prank, but now that I'm looking at this, he gestured to the house. I'm getting a little dizzy. He's crazy, Linda shouted, rushing the cop. Officer, arrest him! Look at it! It's a blight! It's illegal! He's ruining the neighborhood! Miller looked at Linda. Ma'am, step back. It's just paint. It's not just paint, it's aggression. Miller turned to me. Mark, what are we doing here? Is there a reason your house looks like a barcode having a seizure? Religious freedom, officer, I said solemnly. It's the shrine of the stripe. Miller stared at me. The shrine of the stripe. Yes, I am the high refractor of the order of the refractive stripe. This is our holy temple. The pattern keeps the evil spirits and the banal spirits at bay. I handed him the ordination certificate and the building permit. He looked at them. He looked at the religious institution tax exemption application I had printed out, but not yet mailed, though that didn't matter right now. You started a religion, Miller said flatly. To paint your house like a zebra. We prefer refractive camouflage, but yes. Miller looked at the paperwork. He looked at the house. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. He looked at Linda, who was practically foaming at the mouth. Is this a joke? Linda shrieked. That is not a real religion. He made it up. Ma'am, Miller sighed. With all due respect, I can't determine what is and isn't a real religion. That's for a judge. But right now, this man is painting his own property, and he has a permit that says iconography restoration. There's no crime here. But the bylaws, Linda cried. Civil matter, Miller said instantly. The two favorite words of every police officer in America. Take him to court. But I can't arrest a man for painting stripes. He handed me back my papers. Mark, it's certainly unique. Thank you, officer. Confusion brings clarity. Miller snorted. Right. You folks have a nice day. And ma'am, stop calling 911 for paint violations. Next time I'm writing you a ticket for misuse of emergency services. Miller got back in his car. As he drove away, he gave a short burst of his siren, a whoop-whoop of solidarity. Linda stood there, defeated, but not broken. She looked at me with cold, dead eyes. This isn't over, Mark, she hissed. You think you're clever? You think this is funny? I will bury you in fines. I will foreclose on this monstrosity. You will lose this house. Maybe, I said, watching Tony finish a massive stripe that zigzagged across the garage door. But until then, Linda, enjoy the view. She stormed off. I turned back to the house. It was halfway done. It looked like an optical illusion that could induce vomiting in low-flying pilots. Tony, I yelled. Yeah? It's not aggressive enough. Add some diagonal cross-hatching on the shutters. The war had begun, and I had the biggest, ugliest weapon in the arsenal. The following week was the most entertaining week of my life. The painting took 3 days. By the time Tony and his crew packed up, my house was no longer a house. It was a headache manifesting in 3 dimensions. The stripes didn't just go up and down. They clashed. They intersected. The perspective was so warped that from the street, you couldn't tell where the front door was. It looked like the house was vibrating. I added the finishing touches to ensure my legal, religious standing. I bought a 6-foot fiberglass zebra statue from a roadside attraction that was going out of business in Florida. I paid a scandalous amount for overnight shipping. I bolted it to the concrete pad next to my mailbox. I draped a sash around its neck that read, "The Prime Refractor." I installed a gong on the front porch, a large brass gong. At noon, every single day, I walked out in a bathrobe, which I now called my vestments, struck the gong once, and shouted, "Clarity!" It wasn't loud enough to violate the noise ordinance. I checked. It was under 65 decibels. But it was weird enough to make the neighbors stop walking their dogs. Then came the letters. Every day, a new certified letter from the HOA lawyers. Cease and desist. Notice of foreclosure proceedings. Demand for immediate remediation. I wallpapered my downstairs bathroom with them. But Linda had made a tactical error. She had assumed I was just a jerk. She didn't realize I was a jerk with an internet connection. I posted a picture of the house on Reddit. Title, HOA fined me for peach, so I gave them dazzle camo. Welcome to the Church of the Stripe. It went viral overnight. By Tuesday, there were news vans. I was in the kitchen making toast when I saw the Channel 5 news truck pull up. A reporter with perfect hair was standing in front of my zebra statue, gesturing wildly. I walked out, coffee in hand. "Sir! Sir!" The reporter ran over, cameraman trailing. "Are you the owner of this unique property?" "I am the High Refractor, yes," I said calmly. "Can you explain what this is? The neighbors say it's an eyesore. The HOA says it's illegal." "The HOA tried to suppress my spirit," I told the camera, looking deep into the lens. "They told me Sunset Whisper was aggressive. They wanted me to live in a beige box. But the zebra is free. The stripes represent the duality of man, the chaos of existence." "And the gong?" the reporter asked. The gong calls us to attention. It reminds us that while the world is beige, we must be black and white. Is it true you've registered this as a religious shrine? Absolutely. The Order of the Refractive Stripe is a sanctuary for all who are tired of being told what shade of taupe their soul should be. The segment aired that night. The next day, the pilgrims arrived. It started with a few teenagers taking selfies. Then, people started showing up in zebra print. A guy from 3 towns over drove his striped motorcycle onto my lawn and asked for a blessing. I tapped him on the head with a paint stirrer and said, "Go forth and confuse." Linda was losing her mind. The street, usually quiet and dead, was now a slow-moving parade of gawkers. Traffic was backed up to the main road. People were parking in front of Linda's house to walk down and see the Zebra House. I was sitting on my porch on Saturday, signing a fake scripture pamphlet for a fan, when Linda marched up. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Her hair was fraying. Her visor was crooked. "Mark," she said, her voice trembling. "Make it stop." "I can't control the faithful, Linda," I said benevolently. "There are people," she pointed a shaking finger at the street, "parked on my hydrangeas. Someone asked me if I was the demon of beige. They threw a color swatch at me." "I condemn violence," I said. "But the demon of beige is a powerful archetype in our theology." "We are suing you," she snapped, tears welling in her eyes. "The lawyers are filing the injunction Monday. We are going to take your house. We are going to bulldoze this abomination." "You can try," I said. "But do you really want to sue a church? In an election year? The optics, Linda. Think of the optics." She screamed, a primal sound of frustration, and stomped away. But she wasn't wrong. The legal threat was real. I needed to solidify my position. I needed to make the house untouchable. I called Tony again. "Tony, are you busy?" "Mark, I'm watching you on the news right now. You're a legend. What do you need?" "I need floodlights, but not just any floodlights. I need black lights." "Black lights?" "The paint you used. Did we mix in that UV reactive powder I asked about?" "Yeah, in the white stripes, like you said." "Good, because the shrine needs to glow." That night, I flipped the switch. If the house was aggressive during the day, at night it was a radioactive hallucination. The white stripes glowed a ghostly electric purple blue. The black stripes disappeared into the darkness, making the house look like it was floating, disassembled in the void. It was spectacular. I stood on the lawn, basking in the glow. A car pulled up. It wasn't the police, it wasn't a tourist. It was a black sedan. A man in a suit got out. He looked expensive. He carried a briefcase. "Mr. Henderson?" "High refractor," I corrected automatically. "Right. I'm Gerald Finch. I represent the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association's legal counsel." "Ah, the final boss. Can we talk? Does it involve you accepting the zebra into your heart?" "It involves us not spending $300,000 litigating a religious discrimination lawsuit that will make us the laughingstock of the state." I smiled. "Come on in, Gerald. Mind the gong." We sat in my kitchen. The glow from the black lights outside filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across the table. "Here's the situation, Mr. Henderson," Finch said, opening his briefcase. "You have effectively checkmated us. We can foreclose, but you'll countersue for religious discrimination. You'll claim the HOA covenants are unconstitutional as applied to your faith. We might win eventually, but it will take years. Meanwhile, the news crews will never leave. Property values on this street have actually dropped 12% in the last week. Because nobody wants to live next to a tourist attraction. Confusion brings clarity, I said. We want you to stop, Finch said. What will it take? I want the fines dropped, I said. All of them, and a written apology from Linda. Done, Finch said immediately. We'll wipe the ledger. And, I added, I want an exemption. A permanent exemption for the stripes. No, Finch said. Absolutely not. The board will resign before they allow the stripes to stay permanently. The neighbors are threatening a class action lawsuit against the HOA for failing to enforce the rules. We need the stripes gone. Then we have a stalemate, I said. I like the stripes. They speak to me. Mr. Henderson, Finch said, leaning forward. Let's be adults. You don't like the stripes. Nobody likes the stripes. It looks like a distorted QR code. You did this to make a point. You made it. Linda is humiliated. The board is terrified of you. What do you really want? I looked at him. He was smart. I want out, I said quietly. Excuse me? I hate this neighborhood, I admitted. I hated the beige. I hate the rules. I hate that my trash cans have to be behind a lattice screen. I want to move to the country where I can paint my house neon green, and nobody cares. Okay, Finch said slowly. So sell. I can't, I said. You just said property values dropped. If I sell now, I lose money. Plus, who is going to buy the zebra house? Finch tapped his pen on the table. He did some mental math. What if, Finch started, what if the HOA purchased the property? I raised an eyebrow. The HOA buys my house? We have a reserve fund, Finch said, for emergency community improvements. Buying this house and repainting it to restore order, that could be classified as an improvement. I want market value, I said. Pre-zebra market value, plus 20% for the emotional distress of being persecuted for my faith. Finch grimaced. Market value, plus 10%. 15%, I countered. And I take the zebra statue with me. Finch sighed. He extended his hand. Deal. The closing was 3 weeks later. The day before I moved out, I held one last ceremony. A crowd of about 50 believers showed up. I stood on the porch, the zebra statue looming beside me. My children, I shouted. The Order of the Refractive Stripe has achieved its goal. We have forced the establishment to recognize our power, but the energy here, it has become stagnant. The shrine must move. The crowd cheered. We are taking the message to the countryside, I yelled. To a place without bylaws, to a place where the grass can grow 12 inches high. I struck the gong one last time. Clarity. Linda watched from her window. I saw the curtain move. She didn't come out. She had been voted out as president 3 days ago in a desperate attempt by the neighborhood to restore sanity. The new president, a terrified guy named Dave, had personally signed the check for my house. The moving trucks arrived the next morning. I packed the gong. I packed the Summer Whisper paint cans. I kept them as souvenirs. Tony came by with a crane to lift the zebra statue onto a flatbed. End of an era, boss, Tony said, watching the zebra swing through the air. New beginning, Tony, I said. I bought 5 acres out on Route 9. No neighbors for a mile. You gonna paint the new house stripes? Nah, I said. I'm thinking polka dots. Big red polka dots. Tony laughed. Call me when you're ready. I did a final walkthrough of the house. It was empty. The walls echoed. I walked out the front door and looked at the siding one last time. The stripes were dizzying, chaotic, and aggressive. They were perfect. I got into my truck. I rolled down the window as I passed Linda's house. She was in her garden, deadheading roses. She looked up. She froze. I slowed down. I honked the horn. "Bye, Linda," I shouted. "May your beige be ever boring." She didn't wave. She just stared as I drove away, the giant fiberglass zebra on the trailer behind me bobbing its head with every bump in the road. As I turned onto the main highway, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had fought the law, and for once, the law didn't win. The stripes had won. I patted the pocket where the check from the HOA sat. It was a substantial amount of money. Enough to build a very nice house. And maybe, just maybe, enough to build a 50-foot tall zebra statue in my new front yard, just to be safe.